Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to the season opener of Season 8, the first episode of the brand new season of Music is Not a Genre, MxG. Don't you love those hand gestures? This week's topic is the freewheeling catch-up machine, number 11, a kinder, gentler, yeah, fuck that. It's one of my many catch-up episodes wherein I go over fan comments, etc., etc., and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, thank you as always for watching and listening. Listeners, go to youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre. You get a video for every episode of this podcast. And please, while you are there, subscribe and click the bell and like any video that you watch, and please share it and all of that stuff, and rate and review wherever you listen as well. In fact, watchers, if you would rather just listen, go to nickdimatteo.com/musicisnotagenre. There's a link there to all of the various main audio streaming services. And everyone, please go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. I would really like to add some new features to this season, Season 8. You may see some of them this episode, and they may kind of just trickle in as the episodes go. I haven't quite decided yet or found the time, and I'll tell you why later. But either way, your support makes a huge difference. It would be very difficult for me to do this without your support. So along with liking and sharing and subscribing and rating and reviewing and all of that, please consider going to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, because it's only at the minimum $5 a month. You can give more if you are able to. And that supports this podcast, my band Rec, and all the music I make and everything else that I do. And it also feels good for both of us. And as always, I have a song coaching service, nickdimatteo.com/song coaching. If you have been sitting on a song for years and you would like to have it written and even maybe recorded, I'm the guy to go to. I've done hundreds, and I've done them with many artists and many other non-artists who want to record their songs. And I polished them up and gotten them out into the world. So please go to nickdimatteo.com/song coaching and book a free 30-minute call. Finally, before we get back onto the topic here, my band Rec's new single, You Know You're Right, just came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's so far the most popular single of our album, Kite to Camden, which is our new album, and it's epic, as I always say. There will be one more single from that album later this year before other things happen. But please go check out nickdimatteo.com/discography and give a listen to You Know You're Right and anything else that you find there. Let's get back to the topic at hand. The freewheeling catch-up machine, number 11, a kinder, gentler, yeah, fuck that. So, as always, I explain why I'm doing this topic. First of all, I love doing catch-up episodes because it means you're watching and you're listening and you're commenting and we're having a conversation. There's a back and forth here, which I always like to have and would love to have more of. And it's also, honestly, a nice soft launch because you did most of the work. Yes, you did most of the writing with your comments and everything. And I kind of needed to do some catch-up on my own here for a few things. And so starting with this catch-up episode itself gave me a little space to do that. So the subtitle, Kinder, Gentler, yeah, fuck that, is a reference to Season 7's opener, which was, Hey Assholes, music is not a generation. Music is not a generation either. And I kind of went off and blah, blah, blah. And so in this one, I had actually considered, well, was I too strong last season? Did I go too, forward on many things? And then I rethought it, and I said, no, not at all. That's part of this podcast. It always has been, and it's been more and more a part of this podcast as the seasons have gone on. The world is always in some kind of state, and right now it's in a real state, so to speak. And it's important that if any of us have a platform that we speak up, and of course, this is a music podcast. It's not a political or social podcast. But as I have said about the description of Music is Not a Genre, and you can check the teaser, I will and do and have and will continue to go into political and social issues when they are somehow connected to the subject. And so that's why the fun subtitle with the, yeah, fuck that. All right. So, show format. I will go through everything you all said, fan comments, and some things that maybe I forgot as well. I'll talk about some upcoming potential topics, which is one of my favorite things to do because I have a list of things that I am super psyched to get into this season, as I was last season. And then in what's usually the conclusion section, I'll discuss in more detail why Kinder Gentler ain't happening this season. I'll elaborate on what I just said a minute ago. And then, of course, a featured song, which is related to that topic, and some questions. And as is kind of unusual for me with these catch-up episodes, I don't usually do a bonus. I always say the bonus is you. And go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre and become part of the family. And that is true. But this time around, I am doing a bonus MxTRA on patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. And it's kind of a left field topic, literally. And that is, it's my take on the Charlie Kirk stuff. Yeah, you heard me right. This is a music podcast. But the bonus MxTRA on patreon.com/musicisnotagenre is my take on the Charlie Kirk stuff. I will connect it to music and the arts in the way that I do those kinds of things, but I won't be going into it here in this main episode in case you're concerned about that or don't want to hear it. But if you would like to hear it again, patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. Disclaimer, I had, a week ago, a second desktop crash on me. And this time around, I'm having a lot of difficulty getting the handful of files off of there that I hadn't backed up quite yet before it happened. I just had a desktop crash 5 months ago, and then I bought this one. I may have lost some of your comments. That's the disclaimer. I don't think I have. I think I recreated all of them. But if you left a comment on YouTube or somewhere else and you're not included here, please let me know. I will absolutely include it in a future catch-up episode, probably mid-season. Anyway, more about this later. Now, on to the fan comments as I try to clear my throat without wasting precious airspace. You ready for this? All right. That was a voiceover artist's throat clearing. It was also real. So, fan comment. I did a piano version of Prince's song Mountains. It's only mountains and the sea. And someone on YouTube named Challenge Brigade said, piano and piano on the one. Oh. And if you know the song, I think Prince says guitar and drums on the one or something like that. And he was making that joke. I really appreciate that joke because, first of all, that means they like the song and they know the song. Hip Hop Production was an episode I did a season or two ago. And somebody named chimed Hip Hop Instrumentals, so you can figure out where this is going, said boom bap production is my obsession. And so boom bap is a subgenre of hip hop production in instance, kind of old school. And I appreciate this person making that comment. One of my more popular episodes on Duran Duran, again on YouTube, Mega D Dub 69 said, my top 5 Duran Duran albums are as follows and in order. And I believe order meaning the one is number 1 and not backwards, counting backwards. And that is Rio, Midazoland, Duran Duran from 1981, not the one that was the wedding album, All You Need Is Now, and Paper Gods. And there's more from this person's comment, but I want to comment myself here, and that is what I love about this is this person chose albums from their entire career, from the 80s, 90s, 2000s. I had said Midazoland is one of my favorites. I believe I said All You Need Is Now is one of my favorites, and probably Rio. And so the fact that they went all over the place with this is near and dear to my heart. They went on to say, Warren and Nick did put out a concept album under the TV Mania project called Bored with Prozac and the Internet. Very experimental, reminiscent of Midazoland, so maybe came out. I believe I heard this. And in my humble opinion, had some catchy tunes. Euphoria, Beautiful Clothes, I Want to Make Films, and People Know Your Name. Check it out if you can find. I actually did. I do remember I checked it out and I did really enjoy it. I think I liked Midazoland better, but I did like that as well. My episode where Meat guest hosted, yes, and Meat will guest host again this season. Someone commented on the Nirvana portion of the Meat episode, Cal71, on TikTok. Said, So totally true, and I was still in my disco era. I believe that that was me talking about how Nirvana mostly made songs about household objects. You got to look up the Meat episode and understand why Meat said that. Also for the Yoko episode, okay. Now, in my previous catch-up episode, I did some of the comments that had come in before that episode, and some agreed, some disagreed. Most disagreed, and most were pretty angry, and I was kind of hoping to get that. I mean, look, I always hope more to get people who are reasonable, and whether they agree with me or not, maybe state their case in a certain way, blah, blah, blah. But I also secretly kind of hope to get the angry comments and things like that, because I know you're out there. I know this is what you feel because I read this shit all the time on Reddit, etc., and Quora. And it's annoying and short-sighted and all these other things. And to get to the comment, you'll see what else I said about it. Grady Hulsoff on YouTube said, "It's 2025 and there are still people defending that crazy lady. My God," crying, laughing emoji. "Stop projecting." Oh, no, my God. Stop. Okay, so that was that. And then I said, typical comment from a racist misogynist. Now, I justify this by saying there's no objective reason to dislike Yoko unless you're still so butthurt about the Beatles breaking up and blame her, which is just not true. And since there is no objective reason beyond that, and even that doesn't disqualify this, it's very likely that you are judging her for her quirkiness and her forthrightness, forcefulness, her strength and her power. And because she is an Asian woman, you don't like that. Just imagine Yoko as a white man if you need to, and her having done all that stuff. There's a good chance you might say, "Oh yeah, man, experimental really came from a place and really had, the strength and the cojones to just go for it and whatever." You're not going to say that about Yoko, are you, if you're that kind of person? And I kind of mentioned that to this person, and to their credit, they responded to my comment, said, "Stop projecting. You're calling people racist and misogynistic online for not liking Yoko. Why would I argue with you? You're too far gone." So, and then more crying, laughing emojis, or maybe just crying. I don't know. So that's an attempt at gaslighting, an attempt at I'm rubber and you're glue type fucking defense. And it doesn't have, not only doesn't have any merit, it doesn't have any substance, and it's completely off base. So, A, why wouldn't you argue with me? You have a different opinion. Let's argue. Let's talk about it. B, I'm not too far gone for thinking that there are people who don't like Yoko who are racist and misogynist. That's just a fact. That is an absolute fact, and you can extrapolate that to anyone, any other strong woman that they dislike. Real good chance, same reason. Maybe not the racist part, depending on what their race is. All right, so same topic, Yoko. James Prezioso said, "Is this guy for real? Yoko was an established artist? My God, does propping up morons have some capital in the next life? Yoko has, was, and is a talentless nut job who broke up one of the greatest musical groups of all time. The premise is preposterous. Your opinion is like Hitler was a decent guy. He had a real career before World War II. Crying, laughing. If you're this delusional, seek help. Toodles." Which, thank you for the really nice goodbye. I don't even know where to begin with a comment like this, but I'm going to do it. We have the time. This is not a very long episode. I'm going to break this down. And so, is this guy for real? Yoko was established. Yoko was an established artist before she met the Beatles. That is absolutely true. She was part of that arts group whose name is escaping me right now. You can tell me what it is again. I did the episode and forgot half of it. But she was an established artist. Correct. Propping up morons of some capital left, whatever, that's fine. Yoko's a talentless nut job who broke up one of the... Okay, so talentless nut job, obviously not true. Anyone who appreciates forward-thinking music understands that in some ways she might be considered a pioneer, and in other ways she was ahead of the curve at many points in her career. Broke up one of the greatest. I already addressed that. She didn't break up the Beatles. So this is probably the nexus of why this person is being not an idiot, but being idiotic about this particular subject. I don't know the person because they did use the word preposterous. So maybe they're probably smart enough. Your opinion is like Hitler was a decent guy to real career before World War II. No. There'd be no reason at all to bring Hitler into this unless you're one of those people who needs to bring Hitler into a conversation every time you disagree. Okay? And the things that Hitler did are in no way parallel to anything that Yoko ever did. In fact, she's kind of the polar opposite. So since this is an episode that will not go out to children because of the title, fuck you, James Prezioso. But thank you for commenting and continuing. If you're this delusional, seek help. So again, the attempt at gaslighting, that's fine. That's a very common thing when people aren't able to really justify their own arguments. They gaslight the other person. Not a problem. I'm into it. Continuing, again, another fucking fellow Italian, Michael Cipriano, or Cipriano. Paul dodged a bullet, literally. Real sensitive there, dude. True, nothing of substance, just factual information that most would agree with. But why even mention it? This BS is over 50 years old now. So I mention it because of things like that you just said, because of people like you, which is that if this were an argument that was over, a done deal, like it used to be that it was a done deal that everyone agreed that Nixon was a bad president. Turns out there are still people who think he was a great president, so we reopen that argument. There are still so many people who have take issue with Yoko that this is an argument worth continuing, a discussion worth continuing, and I still think it's important to make the effort to correct the record, set the record straight. Okay, Justin, now somebody named Just Austin on TikTok actually gave me 42 big smiles and said, yes, Stop and Smell the Roses was released when Ringo was 42. So let me break that down. The 42 big smiles, they loved, I guess they agreed with my, the things about Yoko. And the 42 was a reference to the fact that Stop and Smell the Roses was released when Ringo was 42. I think they were messing around. They just picked that out of the air. But either way, 42, I thought they were going to say Hitchhiker's Guide, but either way, very cool. Jack W97 said, sucks on every level. It's not cutting edge. It does not move people. It just makes people tell you it sucks if you ever play it to anyone. Stop your delusion. It will hurt your life if you don't. So, delusion again. That's fun. That's fun. So the gaslight. I am so into that. I'm so into people calling me delusional. Maybe that makes me delusional for a different reason. But sucks on every level. It's not cutting. Okay, so that's your opinion. Fine. Clearly your opinion is based on probably two things. You may not be into that kind of music, which I respect that. And you are probably a racist misogynist. Sorry, I'm going to throw it out there. And then you're biased against the music. Armand Gallanosa cannot sing. Yoko cannot sing. That was on two different clips. Okay. Cool. I mean, there are a lot of male artists and probably some other female artists whose voices are quirky. Doesn't mean they can't sing. But I appreciate your opinion, even if I vehemently disagree. Look, her voice isn't my most favorite voice in the world, but she used it in many more than one ways. Or however, I don't know, was supposed to say that. She used it in many ways. She was much more diverse than people give her credit for. So to just say it sucked is a pretty blanket statement. Sheila Laterell said, I bought that album back in the day. It was cathartic for me. I believe that was the album that she recorded and released after John died. I'm pretty sure she was referring to that. And then Sheila followed up with, I never disliked Yoko. I could see that John loved her dearly, which is a point I made. If you're a fan of John, respect John at least. Respect John's love for Yoko. She goes on to say, once I heard traditional Japanese folk vocalizing, I understood her music more. Yeah. Other cultures, anyone? That's the issue here. We are so xenophobic. Well, I'm a weird artist type myself, though not famous, so I really like her artwork. Like her This Is Not Here installation, which I talked about, I believe, maybe in the bonus for that one. But this is somebody who loves and respects her and feels a kinship. Great. Stephen Carinci, what do you think of Albert Goldman's The Lives of John Lennon? And then assholes in quotations. I believe, well, so The Lives of John Lennon, Albert Goldman, that's a trash book. I think I mentioned that. And then I think this person also agreed because that assholes was a reference to some kind of art thing, t-shirt, which I now forget. Paul Hervé Riche says, we love you, Yoko-san. This is what I'm saying. Now that feels so much better. I don't need to get riled up. I've been riled up enough in my life. And, you know, even though I do enjoy it in some ways, I would rather somebody say something like that. Ken, known as Ragtop Man 24, the boys love to perform live. They weren't doing that anymore. That's what broke up the Beatles. I think that was one of the major factors. And Yoko was not. My point here, which I didn't mention in the Yoko episode, the minute I break away from tit for tat and respond more insightfully, these dudes who spew negativity almost always just disengaged. They're overwhelmed maybe by having to respond thoughtfully, or they don't care enough. They were just kind of trolling, weren't expecting a real conversation. Whatever the reason, it's a perfect illustration of why civil discourse is so hard to find. But some of those people did engage. So I appreciate that. On to another topic, hit songs that were covers. That episode, my longtime fan, hello, Burning Two Bridges, always love you, said my favorite cover that I didn't know was a cover at the time is They Don't Know by Tracy Ullman, originally by Kirsty McCall. Jeez, I always do that. They don't know about us. They've never heard of love. I believe that was the song. Great pick, Burning Two Bridges. Tears for Fears episode. My good online buddy and fan, Sean Hoke, said, oh, yay, this is my favorite band, smiley face. Laugh my ass off. You just said that exact thing at 350, which was, I mentioned that it was Sean Hoke's favorite band. Favorite albums, Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, The Seeds of Love, Songs from the Big Chair, Elemental, The Hurting, Raoul and the Kings of Spain, The Tipping Point. Again, this is a true fan. Sean, you're a true fan. I always knew that because you mentioned it before, but you're picking albums from all over their career, which I absolutely love. Okay, Gail Waddle on Facebook said about Tears for Fears said always. Thanks, Gail. On the way, my merch store, we go to nickdimatteo.com/shop, which is undergoing some changes soon, but the stuff is still there. The graphic on the mug that I posted about on LinkedIn that says that was about On the Way Down, my song On the Way Down, and it's just, sadness, whatever. Billy Samoa Salibi said, we've all been there. The quiet moments are often where the good ideas start. So that was really nice. Art pop, the most important genre. That episode of mine is the most popular streaming episode ever of Music Is Not a Genre. Not on YouTube, but just audio. And somebody on LinkedIn, Slothguard the Crazy Viking, who often comments on my stuff, said nice. So I liked it. Bintu, good friend of mine from the Singer-Songwriters Club, said, I think I'm a fan of that vein of music, art pop. I think Erykah Badu is definitely the most art pop of the neo-soul artists. I would agree. Although many of them were probably like, D'Angelo. Really good episode. Damn, I should listen to this episode twice. And he followed up and said, listen to it twice, and we'll probably listen a third time. Good topic. I haven't thought about a ton. I definitely like some art pop. FKA Twigs is another. Yes. The Yeah is very true. You've got me thinking, man. I'm glad. I like to get people thinking. And I mean, Bintu's a great guy anyway. Paul Green 11 said, you're not mentioning Wes Montgomery and Sergio Mendes. That's so interesting because, first of all, Wes Montgomery, I thought I would have said was a jazz artist. I don't know if I'm wrong. Did Wes Montgomery also do like art pop, art rock? Please let me know. Sergio Mendes, that's a borderline for me because I do think Sergio Mendes' music went all over the place. And I think in some ways it was very art pop. So yeah, I'm glad that you called that out. Tristam Niederer said, take a look at The Who from 1965 to 67. Pop art at its finest. 100% agree. Blind Squirrel, talking about the 1980s art pop, back when music was great. No, I mean, yes, music was great then, but it's also great now. You know, I always think that. Kite to Camden, the Rex new album, Joe Farina said, congrats, Nick. Thank you. I am proud of that album. And my bandmate Anthony absolutely loved Rex's new single, You Know You're Right. And I appreciate that too. For my songwriting tutorial episode for the song coach, Shahana Akhtar said, this was such a rich and inspiring tutorial. I love the breakdown into inspiration, perspiration, and flow, and how every element of a song must work together. Nick's advice on overcoming blocks and embracing influence really resonated. Thanks for sharing such an empowering guide. And Adam Forshaw said, thanks for so much for your nice song podcast. And that was not a mistake. He actually said, thanks for so much for. And the reason I lumped those two together is because I believe those were either not real people or that was somebody who was trying to help me promote something and decided to comment. Nevertheless, I like positive comments, and I think they're correct. So check out the song coach. And then Shift D1114 said, what popular songs or hits have you written? Aw, trying to start a fight, trying to discredit me. Listen, my answer to this person was all of them. And by all of them, I mean anything I have ever released and put out into the world was a hit. By hit, I mean it worked. Because I know what the fuck I'm doing with writing songs. And so the measure of success here is the output something worthy of your own artistic expression and of being listened to by others? And the answer for all of it is yes. Some more than others, of course. And I get this person was saying, well, if you haven't written a hit song, why should we listen to you? Guess how many people haven't written a hit song in the world? Most. 99.99999%. Guess how many musicians, songwriters haven't written a hit song? Most. Guess how many of them suck? I don't know. But I guarantee you many of them are fucking great. And I'd put myself in there, so nice try. And then Beagle Fan 1961 said, what was the, oh, I'm sorry. I'm on to a different subject. Sorry about that. So Rock Hall of Fame. I did the bonus episode on the Rock Hall of Fame. And Beagle Fan 1961 said the only artist to have a remake of one of his songs at #1 to be knocked out and have another remake of one of his songs to replace it is Tommy James, which I believe that was in the 1980s. And one of them was Tiffany. Maybe both were. I don't remember. Tommy James has over 100 million records sold. Once I heard it's actually more than 130 million records. Some of the others you mentioned are deserving for the Rock Hall. New Order isn't there. They missed the fact that New Order was there. Cool. Not a problem. But I agree, maybe Tommy James sounds like somebody who should be in the Rock Hall. Thank you for suggesting that, Beagle Fan. One more before we take a break. 8-bit chiptune Nintendo Core episode, which just came out last week. Voldemort, with a 0 instead of an O, said Talking Head video was expecting some chiptunes. I get it. I've mentioned before why I do not include music in my podcast. It's because I want to compel you to go listen. And anytime I listen to podcasts, 90% of the time, when they interrupt by playing the song, I don't like it. So that's my take. But I appreciate that you were looking for the actual music. Hopefully you checked out the podcast anyway. Maybe got some suggestions of some of that music that you might want to check out that you haven't before. Because I mentioned a lot of artists there. And that is where we're going to break before we get to the next section. So hang out for the mid-roll, and I will see you in a minute. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Music is Not a Genre. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast, if you'd like to learn more about the music I do with my band Rec or any other projects or anything else about me, go to nickdematteo.com. That's Nick, DEMATTEO.com. And everything is there. There's even a link to a merch store where you can get t-shirts and mugs and hats and totes and notebooks and so many other things. I'm always adding new products there. Great way to support the podcast. And finally, go to patreon.com/music is not a genre if you'd really like to show your support. My fans and lovely family there get exclusives and other perks and early releases, and they get to suggest topics for future podcasts as well. Thanks for listening to the mid-roll. Now back to the show. All right, we are back with the Season 8 opening episode, and we're getting into the next section. And by the way, as far as talking is not great for singers. The more you talk, the more you wear your voice out. And if you use it in certain ways, it's even worse. I had, prior to this recording, a 3-gig weekend in which I had to play 7 individual sets of music with an average of 10 to 12 songs per set, and there were only about 5 songs that crossed over. And then I had 2 rehearsals following 2 days with 2 more sets of music that had nothing to do with those previous. So I had to prepare 9 sets of music and do a lot of singing. So my voice is already worn out, but I also have been very excited to do this podcast opener for you, and the next one, which I'm recording soon as well, episode 2. And so you know, deal with my voice, and hopefully I drank enough water. Let's get to the next section, and that is upcoming topics. So first of all, some people on Patreon suggested. Patreon.com/music is not a genre. Those who suggest topics there, they tend to get done more quickly than any other suggestions because these are people who support the show. One is, why is quote unquote rock and roll so appealing? And I did do an entire history of rock and roll. I think that's a really interesting question. I don't know if it warrants an entire episode, but it's something I should weave into a future episode. Why the psychological need for music? So Anthony Cirillo, a guy I work with sometimes, good musician, and does some great things in the world, has a podcast about that, like music in the brain and all of that. Although I think I may do something, I think a lot of what I do is that, but I've never maybe devoted an entire episode to specifically music and psychology, which I think would be really interesting. So great. Thank you for those suggestions. And now here are some things I'm considering for this season. All are potential. Some are definite. Some are more likely than others. And a note, this may not be the full list I intended because my, again, brand new desktop crashed and I lost some of the notes that I took. But you'll get a sense of where I'm coming from and what kind of season this is going to be. And first up is an episode on the Pointer Sisters. And to really spotlight their underappreciated 1970s work and the fact that they've had such a long career, et cetera, et cetera. Spoiler alert. That's next week's episode. An episode on Kool and the Gang, for the same reason I would do one on the Pointer Sisters. So many of their songs I have loved and did not know their earlier work very much or their later work after their heyday. An episode on Sly Stone, long overdue. I need to listen to that entire catalog and, extrapolate from that musical integration and how important that was to Sly and to music in general, and how there were artists well before Sly who did that and well after. Episode on the Beach Boys. To honor Brian Wilson, also because I've never done an episode on the Beach Boys. As I've said before, they're not my favorite band, but there are many, many, many things about them I appreciate, and I think they deserve a full episode. Same for The Who, same for the Stones. The Who is one of my favorites. Stones, not so much, but I appreciate both of them. They deserve episodes. Jam bands. That's something I want to do. I might bring in a guest host for that. I know a guy named Scott Blaze who can come in and do just a killer guest hosting episode on jam bands. Speaking of guest hosts, Meat is going to return to fill in some of the gaps that he missed in his complete history of music. Sweet Dreams, Story of the New Romantics, a book published in 2020 that I just finished reading, or I'm almost done reading. I have like 30 pages left, something like that. It's a fascinating book, and it taught me a lot, and I will 100% be doing a book talk on that. Another book that I might do is Mood Machine, about Spotify, what it's done to music culture. Steve Erickson, a frequent contributor to this podcast, recommended it. He read it. Maybe that's one we'll do when he comes back on for Back Talk. But either way, I haven't read it yet, so I'll have to see if I do have time to read it. Then that might be an episode this season. I'm psyched about this, and that is I'm starting a new series. You have a multi-part series on the Beatles, a multi-part series on albums by decade, and a few others. Death is Dumb, of course. This series is going to be on the greatest producers of each decade, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. You'll probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to get the first episode of that. I'd like to do one on the truth about cult hits and cult bands. And you'll have to wait until that episode comes out to understand what I mean about the truth. Also, the truth about fandom, what it means to be a true fan, and how there are a lot of people who profess to be fans of art. I have touched on this in many different episodes about how if you completely dismiss an era of an artist you love, then you're not a real fan. You're a fan of part of them, but they're not a hard artist for you, as I always say. I think that deserves an entire episode. The history and truth of nepotism and how it does or does not contribute to success. The history of children's music, which I almost did last season, but having done one on country music and Christian music, I needed to take a break from things that I'm only tangentially interested in, although I do love the challenge. A history of vocal groups, also partly suggested by my brother, and going back decades and decades, even prior to the boy bands, but really going all the way through, which I'm excited about that too. History of Northern Soul, which if you don't know, is a British thing. Appreciation of obscure soul songs, often white soul, blue-eyed soul, blah, 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 which did contribute in some ways toward the developments of the new romantic movement, new wave. But there are other reasons why I want to do it. My dad is connected to that in some way. Another one would be how the basic gist of musical development, among other types of development, is that everything is an antidote or response to everything else, which I love that because I love evolution and point counterpoint and how things one thing affects another and drives the impetus to do something else. Another one is artists with no center, no artistic center, and how that has or has not affected their success both artistically and commercially, or even just career-wise. Something else I've touched on in several episodes but haven't fleshed out fully, which I again said I always talk about, why living in the past isn't just about comfort, it's also about fear, and how your approach to music very much echoes your approach to the world and how it's changing. I think that deserves a full episode on its own. And then there were some holdovers from last season that I didn't do. Germany's importance in all of modern music, which is one I really, really want to do if I can find the time. It's a big research project. King Crimson, I never got into, so I have to try that. Although what I might do instead is to do an episode on on prog and spotlight the big ones, Yes, Genesis, etc. The what I would consider second tier, although a lot of people wouldn't, but just in terms of their success, King Crimson and the ilk. And then third tier, people that only if you know prog would you know, Gentle Giant, Marillion, etc. I think I might do it that way, but we'll see. We'll see. They all deserve, single episodes, but I don't know. And then that's about it for that. So as always, what do you want me to talk about? Let me know in the comments. Drop a comment or whatever people say. But if you really like dibs on me doing a topic, go to patreon.com/musicisnotgenre and join up and let's talk about it. And you'd be much more likely to have your topic chosen. So a note on Kinder, Gentler and this show in general. This is in lieu of a conclusion. is what this is. And here we go. If you love music of all kinds and love talking about it and love finding connections between seemingly random and disparate styles and artists, and if you're okay with real life entering the conversation, like social and political issues and more, psychological things, then this podcast, Music Is Not a Genre, is for you, because that's what I do. If you would rather we shout at each other than actually have a conversation, this show is not for you. I mean, I'll shout if you want me to shout, but not on the show, but yeah, but that's not what I'm going for. So fair warning that I bring in real world stuff when it applies. It's like I mentioned earlier, and some of it may rankle you if you disagree, and I understand that. When I disagree with something, sometimes it rankles me, not always. But not only is disagreement okay, it's very welcome here. I don't hold off on mentioning the comments of people who disagree with you. You firsthand saw that this episode. You can go to the YouTube channel and view my responses to all of those comments, including the negative ones. I make the best effort to treat them with respect, even if I don't respect the opinion, and have a real conversation, even with the trolls. So with that said, let's get into this discussion about why this will not be a kinder, gentler season. First, I have a question for you. Do you believe music and all of art should not mix with politics? Whether you say yes or no, it doesn't matter, because all art is inherently political, even when it doesn't represent political ideas. Why? Because self-expression is political. There are places, and I mean places in other countries, but also in this country, where artistic self-expression is restricted and or punishable. If you're on the side of the quote-unquote woke police argument, meaning there are people who are out there trying to silence you because you can't speak to first of all, you're speaking your mind about that, so no one's trying to silence you. You just want to be offensive and don't like it when people call you out for that. But second of all, if you are on this woke police thing, then you already believe art is political. You already do, because that's a political statement you're making. Or if you're on the opposite side, who believe that, you know, expression should be for everybody, et cetera, and things that are incendiary are not under that umbrella. They, you know, shouldn't, like yelling fire in a crowded theater, inciting people to violence, etc. You also believe that art is political. Does that mean art has an obligation to address political issues? No. Mentioned that in my protest music episode. But again, the mere existence of art as a form of self-expression is only possible because politics allows it. The society allows it. Government allows it. This podcast can air because there's no restriction on anything I'm saying. I don't think I would say anything that would be restricted, but who knows in this climate. So be careful not to demonize the expression of someone you disagree with, because what applies to one group will apply eventually to all, including you. Feel free to demonize what they're saying, or even the person if you need to. Just don't argue for their right to express to be taken away because you can't stand the content, because then yours might too. There are tons of fans of this show who don't agree with me on many issues, music or otherwise, but we can coexist and even get along at times because we respect each other's right to hold and express opinions and beliefs. Second question for you, more specifically, do you think this show should stay away from politics? Again, whether you say yes or no doesn't matter, because I'm going to do it anyway. But if it's yes, I get that you might have either stumbled on MxG, this show, or are a regular listener, and either way would prefer I just stick to music. I get it, and I appreciate that you're okay, or that I appreciate that opinion that you're like, this is a music podcast, stick to music. But you know what? 95% of other music podcasts stick to music. You can listen to them. If you do think it's okay, I'd love to know what it is about including politics or not excluding politics is okay or important to you. I know why it's important to me. I'd love to know why it's important to you. And whatever your answer, here's mine. 1% of my episodes are primarily or solely political. Say the ep that this shirt refers to, for those of you listeners, I'm wearing my merch store's Give Me $50,000 t-shirt, which refers to my quote-unquote manifesto about economic inequality. And that was a political couple of episodes. And others have been, even though I do connect it to music, but usually it's the other way around. It's the 9% of my episodes are about music, and then I'll throw in, some other thing. Why? This is not a politics podcast. It's a music podcast. So every episode I do comes from my desire to talk about music. But I'm so passionate about it and believe music is so important that I often see how a person's beliefs about music are parallel with their world beliefs and approaches. That's when I find it relevant and vital to bring the world into our discussion. There are also times when discussion of a specific artist or genre or song or album or era or specific music topic makes it impossible to avoid social or political issues, or at least irresponsible. It wouldn't cover the topic fully, like when I talked about protest music or, again, music like U2. Believe it or not, those two questions for you were just to get you ready, because here comes politics, and I'm going to do it in maybe an unexpected way. Okay, I grew up religious. I grew up Roman Catholic. You can count me as one of the millions of very unspecial lapsed Catholics, because I'm not religious anymore. You can never fully shake your past. It certainly has influenced me, and I do strive to be spiritual, but even that is a struggle at times. The reason I say this, and the thing is, and this may be controversial, 100% of us need to believe in something, or even to have faith in something. And you say, oh, atheists. Atheists firmly believe there is no God or afterlife and have faith that this is true, even though they can't verify it. I once heard a commentator say that people who trust science do so because they believe in its efficacy and have faith that scientists are doing their due diligence. And we see now that a lot of people don't have faith in it and whatever. Moreover, most of us need to go beyond belief and faith and feel like there's a purpose to our lives and connection to the world and each other and how we live our lives. It wouldn't be overstatement to say that music is my religion. It's my faith and my belief. It's my purpose and my connection. Though I've had quasi-spiritual experiences in other ways, the most common way I've felt the tingle and joy of life beyond life is through music, whether I believe it or not. Songs, concerts, other people's music, even my own music, I've felt that. I'm not sure I believe that music itself has the power to heal, so to speak, or to change the world, but I absolutely believe that it can inspire those things in individuals and in communities, and has inspired them. So one of the main reasons I give myself the freedom to talk about both music and non-music topics on Music Is Not a Genre, it's right there in the name, if you know what I mean by it, is to connect in multiple ways with you out there, not just musically, in hopes that it might inspire something in either of us. I've been inspired by fans. Hopefully you've been inspired by me. And usually what I want it to inspire is one of two things, both equally important. First and most obvious, I want this podcast to inspire you to listen to more music, give it more consideration, find more you don't know about, share what you do know that I might not know about or someone else in your life. Understand the respect music creators and performers deserve, regardless of whether you like the music. In short, I hope talking about music will inspire you to seek out music, experience it more deeply or at least in a different way, connect it to things you might not have thought of, and share all that with anyone who will listen. It's kind of what I do. And the second reason, very much related to the first, I want this podcast to inspire you. This is going to sound grandiose, but I mean it, to be less afraid, less dismissive, less hateful even, of things you don't understand or know or have had exposure to, things and people. That includes types of music and people, ideologies. It includes differing backgrounds and belief systems. My hope is that you will think differently about all of that and listen more clearly to the meaning and intention of a person's words and not just how they look, how they express it, how they make you feel, or maybe how they pander to your sense of outrage, fear, hurt, etc. I won't say I'm the best person to do this because I can often get too pissed to be more understanding of others, but I make a concerted effort to always leave open the space for unexpected connection and understanding. So before we get to the featured song, a note about the bonus MxTRA at patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, which is my take on Charlie Kirk, not the person, but this whole fiasco that has just happened recently, and how we often sacrifice humanity in service of ideology. First, if you want to hear my take, and it's a big one, you got to go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. I'd love to have you there to weigh in, to hear your response to it, and to support the show and the music. Second, though I'm reserving my discussion for the bonus MxTRA, I will preface it here by saying I do not condone violence of any kind, and I am hugely anti-gun. And take that however you will, because however you're thinking of it, that's what I mean about anti-gun. In the spirit of not condoning violence and being anti-gun, I'm going to do something I've only ever done by accident, and that is I'm going to share a song I've already shared. Ooh. I shared it on a podfast, but still, it's part of the featured song playlist on youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre. There's a featured song playlist. There are 97 songs on there, individual, all stuff I've done. This featured song, it's one of my few overtly political songs. It is vehemently anti-gun and vehemently pro-speaking out. So it's kind of perfect for this episode and this time in the news cycle, although it's never not a good fit, unfortunately, these days. And it's called Make Me Mic My Mouth. It's from REC's album SYZYGY for the Weird. And I also included it on RECcollection, the Best of REC 2007 to 2020. So either way, and the link is in the text, and you'll also hear it in a minute or two. This didn't start out as an anti-gun song. I think I first wrote it at a period when I was angry about a relationship ending, so I hadn't written lyrics yet, but the way it started was going to be very kind of vitriolic in that way. But then I didn't know what to do with it, and it sat unused and unfinished until I was putting together The Weird Objective, which was my 5-album set of Sympathy for the Weird, Syzygy for the Weird, Symphony for the Weird, Syncope for the Weird, Synergy for the Weird. And when I started fleshing out Make Me Mic My Mouth, the words that manifested were all you sons and daughters. Oh, gosh, I forget my own words. But it's guns, guns, guns came out of my mouth. And I was like, oh, that's what this song's about? Cool. I'll write the rest of the lyrics. That said, it's funky. It's weird. It's layered. It's playful. It's strident. It's determined. It's very specific. It's a fun song, actually, despite the political message. And you can stream it anywhere and, of course, enjoy it in less than a minute after we get to questions. Did I mention you in this episode? If so, hello, and thanks for watching or listening, and please keep commenting. Did I not mention you? Did I miss something? Let me know. Let me know, and I'll mention it on a future episode. What topics would you like me to cover in Season 8, especially of the ones I mentioned? Or again, go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre and suggest some topics. How did all this political talk make you feel? What are your answers to the questions I asked earlier, which were, do you believe music and art should not mix with politics? And the second one, do you think this show should stay away from politics? I'd love to know the answers to those questions and all, because as always, my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. Yes! Thank you, as always, for hanging with me, and especially for hanging with me for the Season 8 opener. And I will talk to you next week.
3, 4. Mothers hide your daughters, fathers hide your sons. There's nothing left for us here but guns, guns, guns. Fathers hide your daughters, mothers hide your sons. And all we see around us are guns, guns, guns. Say it. Make you wanna sons and daughters, how's it make you feel? The nightmare visions are coming real, real, real. Fathers and mothers, does it make you cry? Do you wanna shout out to power? Why? Sing it. Makes me mic my mouth. Does it make you wanna mic your mouth? Makes me mic my mouth. Sing it. Makes me mic my mouth. Does it make you wanna mic your mouth? Does it make you wanna mic your mouth? Makes me mic my mouth. Does it make you wanna mic your mouth?
Make me mic my mouth.
It's gonna make me mic my mouth. It's gonna make me mic my mouth. Guns, guns, guns.